HTML5, Reviewing Elements and Attributes. In HTML, tags open and close around content. All of these together are elements. Tags are written using the less than sign, the name of the element, and then the greater than sign to then close the opening tag. Content exists between the opening tag and a closing tag. The difference between the opening tag and the closing tag is a slash within the closing tag, signifying the end of that content. Taken together then, we have an opening tag, content, and a closing tag. Within HTML, elements can be nested. Those inside others are children of another parent element. So one element can have an element within it, in this case, use of the body element, which has a paragraph element inside of it. Notice both body and paragraph have opening and closing tags and content. The content in this case of the body is its children. Its children consist of a single child, in this case, of the paragraph element. So tags, content, and elements describing all of this, and again existing in a parent and child relationship where a parent element can have children. Within those children elements, they could have their own children, and on and on and on. Inside the opening tag of an element are also its attributes. These describe and influence how it is used. ID and class are two of the most common attributes, and in fact, these are used with CSS most often. ID, remember, is exclusive to an individual element within a document, whereas class is a group of elements within a document. So an ID must be unique within a document, but a class can be used again and again and again to classify different elements within a document. So ID and class are two of the most common attributes, but again, there are many others. For example, some are specialized. The image tag has a source. The script tag has a source attribute that describes where its information and data can be found, and other individual elements have very particular attributes, but common attributes, ID and class, are used with CSS and, of course, within documents to define its structure. So HTML5 also allows arbitrary elements and attributes. That is, if it doesn't already exist within HTML5, you can add it as an element and it will be interpreted as such, defined however you want using the rules that exist for element names. You can also add new attributes, assuming they don't collide with existing attributes. So arbitrary elements and attributes can be added as part of HTML5. These elements can, again, be named anything, as long as they follow the rules for an element name. So in general, letters, numbers, the period, hyphen, and the underscore, but you can't use spaces or you can't use other special characters. Something to think about then, especially when using HTML5 and creating arbitrary elements, is that they exist as part of the document object model. So as part of this document object model, children can be accessed via their name. So if you're then searching for a name, it can appear within JavaScript as a property or a variable value. So while periods and hyphens are allowed within elements, they are sometimes hard to search for depending on how they are used and what search parameters are used within the document object model. Generally, in most cases, the recommended usage is for numbers and letters, numbers less so and letters more so, and in special cases, using the period for specific cases. In this example right here, new.sidebar, where this is a valid element name using a period or a hyphen in a similar case. But again, no spaces, because they also are used as variable values within JavaScript, and so elements can't have spaces within their names. They also can't use special characters. We can't, for example, use the @ symbol. So in general, most elements follow the title case rules, which is to say the first letter is capitalized and any subsequent words first letter was capitalized, or Pascal case, where the first one is lowercase and the next one uppercase, or however else they are written. So generally using letters, sometimes using numbers, but also periods, hyphens, and the underscore are technically allowed within element names in HTML5, again creating arbitrary elements. So finally, let's look at the way that a document could be restructured. So in classic HTML4, we might have, for example, headers and paragraph elements, and a number of other things structured in a more complex document. With HTML5 and the ability to add arbitrary elements, we can restructure a document using more useful names for our own project. So for example, in this code, we have the article element with a capital A and sidebar element with a capital S. Now, so while article does exist as an element within HTML5, we could use it in a different way here. Sidebar, however, is a new, in this case, arbitrary element we have added. But this could be helpful for us if we wanted to reorganize a document using the new names, the arbitrary names of new elements and attributes we have added as part of HTML5. This helps us structure the document, creating rules we define using these new elements. So let's review what we know. In HTML5, building on other versions of HTML, we have elements, which are composed of their tags, opening and closing, and the content within them. Elements can also be nested, and a pretty classic example is the body element and its children, consisting of whatever information is on the page, as well as the head within HTML. So HTML, body, and elements, creating nesting relationships between the elements and their parents. So elements exist in a parent-child relationship where a parent element can have multiple children, their children can have children, and their children can have children, and onwards. We also know that all elements have attributes, ID and class being the two most common ones, with ID being exclusive to or individual to a single document. There can only be one ID or one unique ID per document. We also use class for multiple elements to classify them together. And we also know that we can create arbitrary elements within HTML5 by following its rules using letters most often, but also numbers, the period, the hyphen, and the underscore. Again, in most cases, letters and numbers are the preferred usage, but in some very specific cases, the period or the hyphen or the underscore can also be used to create arbitrary elements and arbitrary attributes within elements to allow us to more quickly design the pages and the documents we want.